Hello, good evening, welcome to the Lantamer stream. Let's get you caught up to date with my progress on the journey to a CCIE routing and switching certification, but also talking about some other stuff. Just a quick vlog tonight. I had a question. Well, let me pull up my agenda here because I always will miss something. Yeah, I had a question to someone on YouTube in response to a video said, hey, should I learn Linux? And I will address that here in a moment. That's what we're going to talk mainly about tonight. A couple of meat chunks. One is a dig once law. This is something I did not know about. I saw it on Apple News on my phone. Great idea. Essentially that for new federal roads that they're required to put in conduit to be used for, fiber optic cables. Why not just dig once? We're going to dig it all. So great idea, whoever came up with that. And looks like it might actually pass. So it looks like it passed the House. Might pass the Senate, but hey, I like it. The other one is a Linux cheat sheet. This I've had for a long time. We're going to talk about this in a minute, and the importance of Linux and using Linux and why I believe you should learn Linux. And this is something I've developed over the years over using GNU cheat sheet. It's available on the Lantamer drive share now. It used to be on my personal drive share, and I refer back to it all, from time to time, but now you can get it here. So hopefully you find that useful as well. So blog topics, first thing, should I learn Linux? That was a question. By the way, wallpaper of the day, really cool. Lamborghini came out with this new Huracan Performante Spider in matte blue. And I'm not a big sports car guy, but I love Lamborghinis. I really do. And this thing is gorgeous. Anyway, should I learn Linux? Short answer, yes. And, there's a lot of theories on this, why you should or shouldn't. I will say, in terms of cloud deployments, for example, in Azure, there's an Azure CLI that is basically a lot like Linux. A lot of the commands are very Linux-like. I know AWS, it's easy to modify things using Linux. I'm pretty sure it's that way in Google Cloud as well, I would imagine. They've always been a big proponent of Linux. But let me tell you my story and how I got there. Because, most people in IT, I'd love to learn Linux. But until you have to do it on the job, maybe there's not an incentive to do it. But I'll tell you how I came about to learn Linux. And this goes back a number of years ago. I was working in an IT consulting job, and we got hired to do some consulting in terms of forensics. So essentially digital forensics involving multiple, the business started to grow, that aspect of our consulting practice. This was just something that we would do from time to time, but we started to get a lot more. People liked our work. But essentially, we did not have any professional tools the first couple of jobs or consulting gigs that we got or obtained. And so we resorted to open source tools, which were readily available. And a lot of them had to do with, lawsuits. And, we had to go, we'd often, the scenario was we'd be hired by a company, and they'd want us to go in, and they suspected of certain activities going on. So they asked us to go in at night, for example, and without any, with only management knowing or the owners knowing, we would capture contents of certain drives where there was suspected illegal activity or whatever the case may be. So I've done some of that. And, it was really fascinating work, fascinating technically, and just for the nature of the work, but it was necessary, and it was amazing sometimes. Some of the things, there's one aspect of it that was basically capturing the digital artifacts, and another entirely different phase, or sometimes consulting engagement, which sometimes it was not us. Sometimes we were just doing the gathering of the data or capturing of the data and doing, proper control procedures and things like that. And then some other entity would be involved with analyzing that data, forensics analysis. But eventually we started doing some of that as well, and we would use a lot of open source tools. And guess what? They run on Linux, right? A lot of the open source tools out there, a lot of the, free solutions that you can have when you're getting started in a business or you're new to something, you can start doing it right away using tools in Linux that are free. So a lot of people learn Linux that way or get involved learning Linux that way. That's how I got involved. So, I would use it from time to time, and a sufficient amount of time, a gap of time would occur between sort of these consulting engagements. Then I'd have to go back and sort of relearn some of the different commands and concepts. So what I decided to do at some point is, you know what? I really want to learn Linux. I like the capability. I like what it could do for my career. I'm in networking, and there have been different times, different types of devices where commands are very Linux-like. How can I learn it? And I decided to go cold turkey, as they say here in the U.S., which basically means you dive right in. So what I decided to do is take my consulting laptop, and I essentially took a backup of my Windows system and programs, etc. I imaged it using Linux tools, and then I wiped the laptop, and I installed, at that time it was Ubuntu. That's where I started. A lot of people said Ubuntu would be easiest to start with. It's easier to learn, it's user friendly, it has a nice GUI, so start with that, which I did, and I found it somewhat challenging in the beginning. What I also did is I loaded VirtualBox at the time, and there were some programs that I had to run in Windows. So essentially, I imported my Windows machine as a virtual machine on VirtualBox. So I was still okay with work. I could still do what I needed to do, like our time management system, where we entered, all of our time for billing. That had to be run on a Windows box. There was not another way to run that software. So that solution worked, and it was hard at first. Eventually, I got more and more bold on, I thought, well, Ubuntu, after a number of months, got pretty familiar with that and using the command line. So let me go a little more hardcore, and I started learning about different distros, and eventually I went to Fedora, which, as you know, is typically a lot of different things are tried out in Fedora before they become part of Red Hat. And a lot of companies now use Red Hat, and you can get support with Red Hat. But anyway, so I went to Fedora, and then at some point I remember that this is as deep as I went and learning and loving Linux, because although it was difficult at first and things took me a long time to learn, to do, my productivity went down significantly at first, but it was an investment in time and in myself and in my skills, and my company saw it that way as well, people that I work with. But eventually, I could do things a lot faster in Linux, not just with forensics or other networking tasks, but just working in general. I felt like there's a lot that I could do with engineering and technology faster on Linux. And my machine tended to run faster as well. So, of course, Windows was slower running under VirtualBox, sometimes painfully slow, but it worked. And that just inspired me more and more to try to learn to do things natively in Linux. So yeah, it was great. But I got so into it and enjoyed it so much that I was considering sort of switching gears in my career, go towards Linux administration, or maybe even working on contributing to open source software. I remember it was a holiday weekend where I traveled, and I got stuck in a snowstorm with some relatives. I remember I decided, okay, well, I got a little time. I'm just going to compile my own Linux distro from source code. And that worked up until I try to do wireless drivers. You'll find that is a challenge sometimes. Not so much anymore, I think. But yeah, as you can see, I'm rambling on and on. But I get really excited because I really enjoyed those times learning Linux. And has really helped me throughout the rest of my IT career. Now, for example, I'm a subject matter expert on my current job. And, we use, among other things, F5 load balancers. And those things run Linux. And actually, part of my work requires at times that I do, drop to the bash shell and I run Linux commands that I'm familiar with. We have some syslog systems that run in a Linux environment, and you need to know cat, you need to go grep. So yeah, not for me it was fun, sure, and I'm sure that's different if it's not fun for you to do. But why are we in this business? If you're in IT anyway, you're probably doing it because you love technology and you enjoy it, right? So it's probably going to be fun for you. But second, it's really helpful for your career, in my opinion. What I started doing too is I started to, there was really no one else around me who I could collaborate with or talk to about Linux. But online, man, there's so many resources. I got involved with, there's one, and let me see if the show is still on. There was a show on Tech TV, or no, Twit. It used to be called Tech TV. Yeah, Twit has a show, I think, on Linux. All right, it's called Floss Weekly because it's about all open source software, not just operating systems, but it's about applications. But there's some great episodes of this show, excuse me, that I can actually recommend. These two guys, Randall Schwartz and Aaron Newcomb, they're not Hollywood types in terms of podcasts, but man, they get deep into some Linux applications and they bring people on the show that are very knowledgeable about open source and Linux. And, I think you would enjoy that once you get into it. So anyway, there's loads of resources out there. I encourage you to do it. And if you want to do it, don't just do it half-heartedly. Jump into it, even if it's not your main working machine or your main home machine, take a desktop that you have, or before you replace, maybe you're about to replace your desktop because it's getting slow. Well, breathe new life into it, and but instead of getting rid of it, load Linux up on it and play with it, or get a Raspberry Pi. You can learn a lot about Linux with something like that. So that's all I have to say about that. Again, if you have any more questions or want to discuss Linux, I'll be happy to do it. This channel and this stream is mainly about Cisco networking. But this comes up from time to time for an important reason, because Linux is important in our industry, even as a network engineer. And I think you'll find that learning to use it will be very important for you, if not now, later in your career. Just some updates on VIRL 1.5. I'm checking pretty much every day now to see if it's available, and it's not yet available, but I'll keep you up to date on that. And I'm about to get back. I'm about to, again, shut down the stream because I'm going to be working on written studies. Today I got a little bit done. I'm pretty much hitting into the security section. So today I saw an INE video about control plane policing, good stuff, and TACACS, AAA, and I'm going to be working some more on that tonight, and we'll watch a few more videos. But yeah, we're making good progress. We have, how many days is it? June 10th is my test date. So now I'm looking at, let this thing recount, I think it's 95. Yeah, 95 days to go, folks. So yeah, got to get down to business. Thanks for tuning in, folks, here to the Lantamer stream. And if you have any other questions, check us out on Discord. All that is linked below. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And let's connect up. Hope you get all the good bits in your studies and in your labbing. And we shall see you soon back here on the Lantamer stream. Have a good night, folks.